Morning. Thank you, Kyle, for the introduction there. Thank you for inviting us to this great event on the First Nations Leadership Council. I'd like to thank Don Johnson for reaching out and having LBN do another presentation in terms of the child and family jurisdiction work that we've been doing. And to Jake, I believe he's been one of the behind the scenes fella that has been helping us set up this our PowerPoint presentation. So good morning, everyone. For all those that don't know me, my name is Chief Murphy Abraham of the Lake Babine Nation. This is my first term as the Lake Babine Nation Chief. In my previous term, I was the Wyoming Council. During that time, I held a health portfolio, and under that health portfolio was child and family. And I worked with Emma Palmatier during that time. And Babine has been doing some great work with the child and family jurisdiction. I'd like to introduce to my other colleagues, Crystal and Alan. So I'd have Crystal and then Alan introduce yourself as well.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Crystal Harwood, and I am Frog Clan, and I represent our nation as a Skyzek Chaw, working my way through our traditional system alongside our membership. And I'm honored to be before you today. I'm the jurisdiction coordinator for Lake Babine Nation.
Denise Skyze, hello everyone. My name is Alan Cummings. I'm of Cree ancestry. I've been adopted by the Wet'suwet'en Nation, the Sayu Beaver Clan, and a huge honor. I'm currently in Musqueam territory. I'm zooming in today, and I have the tremendous honor and privilege and pleasure of working in support of Lake Babine Nation's jurisdiction and service model development. So thank you.
You're just muted, Chief. Still muted.
And Denise, I just can't wait until we're all in person because the getting zoomed out here pretty quick. And but if we can put this slideshow up with our presentation. Okay. Thank you. So, as mentioned, Lake Babine Nation is doing the jurisdiction for the child and family. And first, I'd like to thank you all for joining us here today for the First Nations Leadership Council, March 22nd, 2022. Next slide, please. So we have some introductions here. We've done the introductions. We have Lake Babine Nation background, also the timeline, the foundation agreement, milestones, the jurisdiction and service model development, and the interim measures initiatives. So these, we did our introductions here. Chief Murphy Abraham, Crystal Harwood, our jurisdiction coordinator, and Alan Cummings, our jurisdiction consultant. These two just work great together, and the amount of work and time that they put into this work, it's unbelievable. You know, I wish we had a few more of them here helping us with the work at hand, and because this, we're a big nation, and we definitely need all hands on deck with the work that we're doing here on forward. So I'm a sideshow for them for putting this together for us. So Lake Babine has a concept of 5 communities. The largest community is Wyoming, and it's located on the traditional land of Tsilkasco First Nation, basically part of Burns Lake and Burns Lake Band, and has served as the nation's administrative center since our forced relocation in the 1950s. So the land that we're on right now is technically the Tsilkasco Nation, but over the years we've sat and negotiated with the nation to transfer this to Lake Babine Nation Reserve land. So, and it's taken many years, and we're just grateful, and the humbleness of our neighboring nation to allow us to sit in their traditional territory. Lake Babine has over 2,570 registered members. We also have high fluency level here. I think from 43 years and up, I can say that we have fluent speakers within our nation. And we're also having we have our own school here on the reserve that consists from kindergarten to grade 7. And they run language classes every day for the children. So basically we're carrying on the language within our territory and within our schools. We have 77 children in care. I last looked at our our list back in 2020 of October. We had 61 children in care, and now we have 77. And this is a great concern for me, and this is one of the reasons why I want to push this work forward. And encouraging our team that we need to get out there, we need to engage with the members, and then we need to move this work forward. And so far, they've been doing a tremendous job. Lake Babine Nation territory covers 1.4 million hectares. That includes 28 reserves. Lake Babine Nation operates on an Indian Act custom election code system with 1 chief and 9 council members every 3 years. So we have 9 council, 4 are from the Wyoming Reserve, and I will point that out in the other slides here. And then we have Lake Babine has a vibrant hereditary Bathlats governance system with 4 clans, the beaver, frog, caribou, and the bear. So the beaver is Lahtsamasi. That's part of who I'm part of the Lahtsamasi clan. The frog is the Zehu, the caribou is Galantan, and the bear is the Lahtjabu. And we have over 105 hereditary chief, which 96 of them are very active in our traditional Batlat system. Next slide. So as stated here, Wyoming is an IR 27. We are located in municipal boundaries of Village of Burns Lake. The reserve area is about 60 hectares, so 140 acres, and serves as a central administration. The population, we have about 1,100 residing in 147 homes here on the Wyoming Reserve. Fort Babine is located 165 miles northeast of Burns Lake, and it's about an hour drive north of Smithers. It's remote and accessible via gravel login road. And the population, it's around these are some of the numbers that have dropped. So it says here 200, but where I think we've dropped a bit there with 36 homes. Tatchet is IR 25, and this is located 60 miles northwest of Burns Lake. And same with the numbers here have dropped a bit in the 46 homes. This is near the small community of Grand Isle, and just right on the shore of Babine Lake. So they have a beautiful view. Both communities here, Fort Babine and Tatchet, have a beautiful view. They're on the shoreline, and their view is the Lake Babine and Babine Lake. Fort Babine, I just want to mention that it's one of our mother communities, and we have 2 elected councillors for Fort Babine. We also have 2 elected councillors for Tatchet and 4 elected councillors for Wyoming. So these are the year-round communities that we have. Next slide, please. Old Fort Nidowats. This is located 20 miles northeast of Grand Isle, and on the Babine Lake. We have 15 families that spend up to 10 months in the community, and occasionally 1 to 2 families live year-round in the community to do their fishing, hunting, and trapping. Old Fort is one of the other mother communities, as we like to say, Nidowats. This is a beautiful community, and the lawn there that they have, it's very beautiful. And once you step ground on it, you only can get there through boat access, and it's very, you can feel the history there when you start walking around, and it's a beautiful community. It's definitely something that I really suggest for you to check out. And then we also have Donald's Landing. It's IR21. That's located approximately 20 miles northeast of Burns Lake on the Babine Lake. 12 families spend up to 9 months there, with only one family living year round. So in this case, we have Old Fort. We have one counselor representative for Old Fort, Verna Power, and she's been a great advocate and leader in the work that we're doing as well. So Donald's Landing, Pinkett Lake is the other communities that we, basically of a 5 community concept. These are seasonal communities, but we're working our way to moving our citizens home, our membership to move home and start living in these communities once again. So next slide. So here's this is the Babine Lake here. As you can see, Fort Babine's right at top. That's one of the mother communities. Old Fort is right below Fort Babine. Then we have Tatchet, Donald's Landing, and Wyoming. We also have Pinkett Lake here as one of our reserves as well, and we sort of put the Donald's Landing, Pinkett Lake together because they're so close of communities that are together. So this is basically the pictures that we have at in regards to the Babine Lake. So next slide. So the background, LBN is developing its child and family services laws and service models to resume decision-making authority for the safety and well-being of its members across Canada as the key component of self-government. And LBN Tripartite Foundation Agreement signed with Canada and BC September 2020 provides jurisdiction options not reliant on the Act, respecting First Nations, Inuit, Métis, and youth and families. And we also have a tripartite working group. This has Indigenous Service Canada, the Crown of Indigenous Relationship Northern Affairs Canada, CERNAC, BC, Ministry of Children and Family Development, and the Ministry of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation. So the relationship that we have built with these tables over the last 4 years have been very rewarding. BC has been a great leader in terms of advocating for Lake Babine. Canada stepped up to the plate, I believe, a few years after the work started. And so far, they've been doing a good job and doing their best to get caught up in the work. And I feel that this basically gives us an advantage in terms of our child and family jurisdiction. Okay, so this is the timeline here. We can see that 1882, the first missionaries in our territory. And from there, we have in 1836, we have Fort Kilmer's Hudson Bay Fort was established. The 1905 Barricade Treaty, I'd like to acknowledge this. This was down on Fort Babine. And Fort Babine, excuse me, we had a couple of chiefs that had gone to Ottawa. And back then, we had fishing weirs. And there's an island here that I just found out about a few years ago. They did a presentation at our AGA. It's between, it's between Nilkitqua Lake and Babine Lake. And it's the river that goes towards Nilkitqua Lake. There's an island there that's over 1,100 years old. And it's an island that our ancestors, that has been proven, that was built during that time in this river. And basically the purpose of this was to have fish harvesting on that island and to set up our fishing weirs between those rivers, to catch salmon, to provide the year-round harvesting, so that was a unique part of history that we just found out. I just found out personally. I know our elders have been talking about it for generations, but there has been studies, and scientists have confirmed that it was built well over 1100 years ago by our ancestors. And then we can see here at the 1957 amalgamation, Fort Babine and Old Fort are mother communities. I'd like to continue to mention that because they were amalgamated to one nation. And from there, they started moving some of our citizens up to Wyoming on this reserve that we're sitting on right now. And so, this was a forced relocation. Some of our citizens have lived in Pendleton Bay. Like my father, for instance, grew up in Pendleton Bay with his parents, and they were forced out of Pendleton Bay into Wyoming, because we had numerous houses in Pendleton Bay back in before this amalgamation. And when the Indian agent came in and forced us to move up to Wyoming. So going forward here, we'll go to the 2007 Chief and Council Custom Election Code. This is something that we're working on and hoping to get revised and approved by our citizenship by 2023. 2016, we have an LBN reconciliation visioning session. Then Chief and Council had gone down to Victoria to meet with some of the ministers actually, and had a visioning session. I believe it was a 3-day visioning session. And this is where a lot of the foundation agreement was developed. In this meeting, they brought up child and family. They brought up governance. They brought up justice, wildlife, fisheries, education, health, and language. These are some of the aspects of our foundation agreement that they brought up. And they started developing this agreement from here on forward. And in 2018, Canada enters the Foundation Agreement Reconciliation Rights and Title Negotiation. The 2019, the LBN Child and Family Advisory Team, CFAT, established our first engagement, and we established our CFAT team, which is our Child and Family Advisory Team, which was led by our very own Emma Palmatier at that time. And then from there, we signed a 2020 landmark foundation agreement with BC and Canada with then Chief Gordon Alec. Gordon has been a team player and has been great in advocacy of this work that we have. And November 2020, LBN recognizes as Indigenous governing body by MCFD. So we have 2 individuals, frontline workers, that they call if a child is being apprehended and or if there's issues in these types of calls, our 2 frontline workers are then communicated, and they do their best to keep our children within their family lineage. And then 2021, January, LBN recognized as the IGB by Indigenous Service Canada. Slide. So this is our foundation agreement vision. Lake Babine Nation envisions healthy and vibrant children and families with deep connections to culture, language, and community through learning from and building upon Lake Babine Nation's strength, tradition, values, and customary laws The goal is to build a future where no children are in care and all children are with loving Lake Babine Nation families, and where Lake Babine Nation families are continually supported as needed with education on parenting, cultural immersion, opportunities, as well as a required health services and basic financial assistance so as to enable them to meet their children's needs. So these are obviously a great vision that was created, and it's something that we do our best to adhere by and remind ourselves that we have children that are in care that are away from family. Our main goal is to continue with this work and to get our children in care, reconnected to their families, and if not, back with their family lineage. So I'd just like to, invite Crystal and Alan, if they had anything to share on some of these slides, feel free to jump in. So next slide here.
I just want to make a quick comment, Chief. I think that you should perhaps share your own story because it's quite wonderful.
Okay, so the story of when I was a Wyoming council, I did not know much about the Child and Family Department and the system to that matter. Before my councilship, I was a recreation coordinator for Lake Babine for 7 years. I ran a lot of sport and culture programs for our children within community, for Fort Babine, Tachet, and Wyoming. And I knew that there wasn't enough emphasis, enough funds, enough programs for our children in these communities. So I felt the need to leap up to leadership and make that change to put more spotlight onto our children. So when I got voted in as a leadership for Wyoming, I held a health portfolio, and I've attended many meetings with Emma Palmatier. And some of these meetings I've gone to, I've heard stories from our children in care, how sure some were in loving non-Indigenous homes, and some were in homes that they felt neglected. Some they had different stories, but the one, they all hit me the same. But the one that really stuck out is the ones that live in non-Indigenous homes that were loved by their foster parents, but at the same time, they felt that emptiness inside them. They felt that why didn't my parents or any of my families come to seek me out? Why didn't my nation come to seek me out? And that hit home with me, and that really, changed my perspectives on the child and family work that we're doing. That gave me the drive to continue forward with this work. And during that time, my wife, and I'm married to a beautiful wife, Fern Abraham, and she's one of our frontline workers. We had a niece and 3 nephews in care. And the first year, it just so happened that we had our niece that we were talking about getting them back within our family. But I think some of you know that the obstacles and challenges that you have to face through the foster caring program. And I didn't think that it would be that intrusive and that personal. But anyways, getting back to our niece, we ended up taking her into our care. There was an issue that happened in their home, and she came to live with us. So the transition began there. So we started the foster parenting program for the next 6 months. And basically it was very stressful. The questions that they asked was very personal. And to be honest, I keep thinking I wonder why there's not much of our Indigenous families that are not foster parents, because it's this program and this system, this training is meant to fail them, because that's how I look at it. Because as you all know, at the 60 Scoops residential school, I'm a survivor of the day school. this is where I felt that we needed to create a better system, because we still have loving parents out there, loving uncles, loving grandmas and grandpas that are willing to take the kids in, but the program that they have to go through, they don't want to give it's too intrusive for them. And but we did manage to complete it. And so once we had we're registered foster parents under the colonial system that they have now. So, and now we have our niece in care for that during that time. And then we decided to go with our 3 nephews. So our 3 nephews were situated 45 minutes away from Burns Lake in Houston. And so that was a very challenging time, because they were in care for 8-9 years, about 9 years. And the transition for that was very challenging. We felt that we were getting support, but at the same time, the support that we needed wasn't really backing us up 100% with the transition. We had to kick, scream, and fight, to get through that process, that transition process, because we knew the importance of having our niece and our nephews home with us within our nation, and connected to family on a day-to-day basis. And so we had some challenges with the foster home there for the time being. It wasn't pretty, but bottom line is they're in our care now. We have our niece and 3 nephews in our care. With the schedules that we hold right now, we make it work, and we're pretty fortunate and grateful for our son John, that tends to step up and watch our niece and nephews during the times that we're away from home. So he's he had to go through the process as well, in terms of the colonial process, to get approved as a caregiver, or one's a respite worker. So that's our story there, and it just gives us more drive to continue this work. And one other thing too is we have children in Ontario. We were just there last week, and these children weren't really connected to LBN. A few years ago, they did come home for our welcoming our home ceremony that was situated here in Burns Lake. And that was one of their first connections with their homeland, and some with their families in many years. And but we, as a chief of Lake Babine, I knew it was important to bring some of our HCs and our frontline workers, and really we went down there and we started engaging in this meeting and connecting with the kids, and we informed the kids that the nation is here. The nation is here, and we're wanting to keep this connection. We inform them that you're not forgotten. We inform them that you're loved and you're cared for. And we inform them that we're bringing a culture and a program to you, and if so, we can take you back, and you can come back to our traditional territory, and you come back where your ancestors have lived for many generations, and you can do your fish, to do your hunting and trap. And these are things that we're willing to do. And we had a mini ceremony for the 4 kids there, the 4 oldest kids, and there was the 4 younger ones that couldn't make it for conflicting reasons. But this is the dedication that we have, in terms of the work that we're doing. We're willing to travel across the country to let our kids know that we're here, and that we're taking over jurisdiction, and we're bringing them home, one way or the other, to be connected, or we're bringing them home. So it's a foundation agreement here. I'll move on here. So that's just a quick story on the challenges but at the same time, the positives of what we're going through. It's always rewarding, no matter what, the challenges that we're facing. There's a reward at the end of that road. So LBN's foundation agreement sets out 7 milestones to guide LBN's child and family services, law, and services model development. Milestone 1, as mentioned, the Child and Family Advisory Team was established to provide guidance in the development of LBN's law and service model. CFAT members are appointed by Chief and Council through an application process and meet on a monthly basis. And our CFAT representation is 5 LBN communities, 1 urban rep, a Chief and Council rep, a youth and administration, and 4 hereditary chiefs selected by each clan. So the chiefs are, this is something that our team here has decided to have the hereditary chiefs be selected by their own clansmen. And then this will be brought up, and then, you know, Chief and Council will obviously we'd honor this, you know, because they're the ones that are selecting their own hereditary chiefs to sit on these advisory teams, and we're going to honor the whatever outcome that they come, whatever names that they put forward. So, next slide. So the foundation agreement and child and family advisory team, here's as we see Crystal Harwood, staff designate. You know, she's the coordinator, but she's also been leading the work since our Emma Palmatier has been off on health related issues. I'm one of the Chief and Council rep, along with Millie Alec George. She's the second Chief and Council rep. We have Geraldine Michelle and Cheyenne Dennis. Geraldine is the Galantan Caribou clan, and Cheyenne Dennis is the Lac Chaboux Bear clan representative. And we have Richard Williams, a very well respected hereditary chiefs, and I just admire the way this man speaks highly, very fluent in our language, and when he speaks, you know, you can hear a pin drop in the room. And I'm very fortunate to have him on our team, and he's the Wyoming rep here. Margie Alec is our Old Fort rep. She's very energetic. Daisy Charlie is our Tatchat rep. Daisy is one of our frontline workers in Tatchat as well. I feel that she's the cornerstone of Tatchat in terms of our administration building for health in Tatchat. We also have Stephanie Tom as our youth urban rep, and Brianna Michelle as our youth LBN rep on the reserve. And the vacancies that we see here are Donald's Landing, Fort Babine, and urban, the 2 vacant spots for the hereditary chiefs. And I understand that what Crystal had communicated to me is that these are going to be filled up quite fast because of our latest engagements and our latest engagements with our hereditary chiefs this past week. So so as you see here are some of our pictures of our hereditary chiefs. The one at the bottom left is some of our respected elders back in the 80s, early 90s. As you can see, some skies there on the top right, you know, and these are just some of the beautiful pictures that we have of our hereditary chiefs in Skyze. Skyze is Skyze Cho. It means the children of the hereditary chiefs, you know. So, and that's what we mean by Skyze. And Denise and Zakaze. Denise is our male hereditary chiefs, the men, and the Zakaze is the lady hereditary chiefs. Okay, next slide. So the foundation agreement, key milestones. Milestone 2 identifies gaps in services and enhancement of short-term service delivery. LBN prevention service plan developed in 2021. The milestone 2 research custom laws and practices, conduct and strength and needs assessment and develop of a human resource plan via member consultation. Milestone 5 is to develop LBN's child and family service model. have requested data per all LBN members involved in the CFCSA services across BC to inform and design a development. So milestone 2, we have, I guess we're all familiar with the prevention dollars that have finally come over to BC. We are under a delegated agency, and we have been advocating and pushing for funds so that we can start running our own child and family services program here within our communities and out in the urban communities. And I know that there's restrictions behind this in terms of only being spent on reserve, and I don't think that shouldn't happen. That's just more dictations to the nation, because we have members that are situated throughout BC, and like I mentioned, out in Ontario, and we're determined and wanting to bring our culture out to them. We're determined and wanting to build a community outside of our community. And it's one of our main goals there, because we want to make sure that our LBN member or citizens out there know that their leadership here is wanting to develop that community out there for them, so that they can feel that they're part of us, that they can feel that LBN's not forgotten them. And this is part of reconciliation. This is what I brought up to our table. That's part of reconciliation right there. So we're only doing this once, and we have to make sure we're doing it properly, and we have the foundation agreement here that has Canada and BC committed to this agreement as well. And this is an open-ended agreement, I need to mention here. It's not a treaty. It's something that either parties can opt out of. There are some legal binding parts of this agreement, but it's not a treaty. It's an open-ended agreement. And but to get back to this milestone here, milestone 2, I continue to push Canada and BC. Is like, we have developed our own prevention funds, to build up our own capacity, but it's dictated to us by our delegated agency, and that's something that I don't like. And that's one of the reasons why I feel the need that Lake Babine Nation is going to be moving in and away from that delegated agency, because I believe in the nation. I believe in our HCs, the youth, and the people that we have in the community to do this work. And this is something, as a leader of our nation in the colonial system, that I believe that I have that much belief in our nation. And so this is, Alan, if you want to jump in and talk about more of the milestone 2 or 4 and 5 while
Well, sure, yeah. Last year, when I started working with LBN, we actually, and working with the Child Family Advisory Team and Chief and Council, we actually put together LBN's own self-determined prevention services plan. And this is something that, was informed by all of the members through their, various knowledge and expertise of their communities, of the people and the members in those areas, and reflective of the gaps that we saw. So this was a plan that we put together that I think it was just a bit over $3.2 million. So we are now, Chief has instructed us again, because we know a lot more since that time of a year ago. And of course, there's going to be a significant introduction of new prevention services funding. Potentially, it's looking like for LBN, with having 21 members registered on reserve, that's another $3.5 million coming in. So there's significant need, as Chief said. One of the key things we prioritized, especially from the information we got from the engagements in Vancouver, Prince George, and other urban centers, was the people, yes, as Chief said, they want cultural programming, they want cultural events, they want teachings, they want the hereditary chiefs to come. They want, they want to feel connected, and they want to feel that sense of belonging. As well, we worked with the neighboring Wet'suwet'en Nation, the one that I'm very passionate and happy that I got adopted into in 2014. They had introduced early intervention outreach workers in urban centers. In Prince George, they had 2 workers. In Vancouver, they had 2, and I understand they were expanding that to 4. They put support workers into Burns Lake as well. And they graciously shared their job description, shared their, shared a number of things, working together as neighboring nations. And it was something that we then looked at, assessed, and we designed and developed that for ourselves as well. I mean, as Chief said, LBN is the third largest Indigenous nation in BC and has significant populations in the urban centers in Vancouver. And just from what the Wet'suwet'en shared, they have approximately 100 families they're supporting in both Prince George and in Vancouver. And given the profile, given the reality that there's 77 children in care right now across BC, and I believe that's over 50 outside of sort of the general service area that is served by the delegated agency. There's significant need in these urban centers, and Chief has prioritized that, and he's raising it at every tripartite table meeting that he fully disagrees, as we all do, of having restrictions and limitations imposed on prevention services funding and where they can be used and not used. So.
Thank you. Next slide. There's a foundation agreement, the hard work at the developing prevention services plan. So right at the far corner there in the red shirt is Debbie West. She was our jurisdiction coordinator at that time. Debbie is now our Wyoming counselor. So she's one of the elected leaders for Wyoming. And Crystal Harwood, our jurisdiction coordinator, right beside Debbie. And we also have Emma Palmetier here right at the bottom corner. And Colette was her assistant at that time. So basically, you can see that they're hard at work in developing a lot of these prevention services plan over the last couple of years. The first was $389,000, and I told Emma, I was like, we need to push that up more and more. The second time we submitted was 1.4 million, and the third time was 3.2, I believe, or yeah, $3.2 million, and but that was put to a stop. That was because our funds are basically brought through our board of directors, and there was some information shared at that table that I disagreed with, but anyways, that definitely is one of the reasons why we're, because we know our nation, we know our people, and we know the work that they can do. And I understand all of this thing about the professionals and the experts. Yeah, these are professionals and experts in the colonial system, but they're not professionals and experts in our community. We have them. And they see it and they come to us and they tell us what they need in those communities. And this is what we are driven by as our nation's people. So next slide, please. So here's a foundation agreement. Milestone 2 is Grandma's House. Emma Palmetier, once again, has been leading this work. It's a 37 self-contained units with a full kitchen. Will provide affordable housing units for young parents and their children, as well as youth who are at risk of becoming homeless and those who have aged out of care. There will be 2 common lounges, a children's play space, counseling office, an office for the support workers, and residential unit for the den mother. So the Grandma's House will provide 2 meals per day and have a 24/7 on-site staff. So years ago, and we were having a meeting, and we're talking about a place to have our children's and our mothers and our fathers to go to when MCFD comes and knocking at their door. And I remembered, I shared my experience many times where the Indian agent child welfare worker came knocking at our door early mornings, 7, 8 in the morning. And on instinct, once we seen that, my mom and or my dad would say, run to Grandma's house, because Grandma's house was the safe haven. So basically, that's one of the things that came back is like, this would be nice to call it Grandma's house, and I'm not going to be taking credit for it, because our nation is known for that. Is that Grandma's house is always the safest place to go. The matriarchs are the ones that fought off the Indian agents. They're the ones that threw the Indian agents in the river. The time when they tried to take out the the fish weirs, and they're the ones that took in our grandchildren, took in the children. So they are the true matriarchs. They're the ones that kept the family homestead in order, in terms of the children. And so basically, this is just definitely a well-known fact within our nation. So it's one of the reasons why we're calling this Grandma's house. Next slide. So the design is underway. It's already, I believe it's been completed. The construction, we were hoping to start in the spring of 2022, and to have the residents move into new housing in 2023. So basically, this is like, as I'll elaborate a little bit more on this, this would be a place where some of our youth that are aging out of care that can come and be situated until they're given all the skills to go out there in the world, to take on the world, so to speak, and then we'll have rooms for families, and we'll have rooms for other individuals that are like in term care, so instead of our kids going into a non-Indigenous home on the interim, we can have them situated here, the families being close together within the scope of our workers' supervision, and keeping them unified and keeping them together is something that is it's one of the reasons why we're wanting to bring this to Lake Babine. Next slide. We're also having, this was led by Emma Palmatier as well, the 6 Nations supportive housing will provide long-term housing for those who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. We have 44 self-contained units, which will include a bar, kitchens, and bathrooms. Amenities such as lounge areas, computer rooms, medical rooms, and counseling room, outdoor recreation space, gardens, and a dog run. 2 meals per day, 24/7 on-site support workers. The construction of this is supposed to start this year, I believe, in end of this month. So this basically is an old motor inn, as it's an old motel that is situated just at the entrance of Burns Lake, right by our grocery store. And this is a transition home, so to speak, where the ones that are homeless, or the ones that are needing help to have a supportive living to get them back onto their feet, this is where we are going to be situating this in Burns Lake. And Emma has been leading this work on behalf of Lake Babine, and I believe there has been community leadership and/or administration workers from the other 5 nations that have been involved in this, including the village of Burns Lake. And we actually opened this up in the interim. It's like I said, the construction starts at the end of this month, but because this was a motel, we ended up opening up the doors on the interim, and basically make them, we ended up opening up this year because we had so many workers that are in care. And I lost my train of thought. But the ones that are living out in the street, they had a place to stay. This was the interim part. We provided them with a room, and we provided them with blankets and pillows, and then we gave them some 2 meals a day, and at least they had a safe and warm place to sleep throughout the winter. So thanks to the Village of Burns Lake that submitted an application to open this up on the interim for this this winter, and basically now we're into construction zone coming in the end of March, and we're hoping to have this open by before the snow falls up this year. Okay, next slide. So here's some of the timelines here. The site selection, community and stakeholder outreach and rezoning. The summer, construction begins. In the winter, residents move in. So we're really encouraging and pushing the construction to start right away. And we also have directed one of our directors here, our capital and infrastructure, to start developing a committee for this, and to start the internal process in terms of policies and procedures and how it's going to be rolling out. So next. So I believe this is, we'll pass it over to Crystal to present on the next few slides here.
Thank you, Chief. Yes, for our jurisdiction and service model development, we've been working with the Child and Family Advisory Team and the Chief and Council in developing our work plan and our budget. And we've recently submitted a budget of 1.2 million to Indigenous Services Canada and MCFD. And where LBN is accessing ISC, National Capacity Development Funding, and continues to request the support from MCFD and other delegated agencies. LBN's law for its children and families will be rooted in our bathlats, our feast. It will be our governance, our clan system, legal traditions, values, language, and culture. And the work that we've invested in this started when we referenced to service delivery plans. We meet with and engage with our members at all levels. We do service delivery plans with development of traditional and cultural activities or programs. And with the knowledge that's brought forth from our hereditary chiefs and our elders, we implement that into those programs, and we've been quite successful in enhancing and even identifying and scoping out areas that we feel have not been addressed and neglected for the past 30 years. And we want to assert the process in reclaiming that and restating that we do have our own system. So it's been quite successful for our nation. And LBN's Chief and Council mandated a comprehensive members engagement process for the development of its law that is reflected in the new jurisdiction work that we're going to be sharing with you. And so we have the support of the LBN's Chief and Council, our membership that are living within each of these communities and in the urban areas. And it's so pivotal that the work that is being invested or developed to develop these laws, having that root and connection. As you see, grandma's house, nobody tested grandma. If grandma made a law, grandma's rule goes. And that's what our people assert. This is the way we're raised. And we do express the best interest of our children in this process. It's no better feeling hearing our people state that, yes, we do believe that we have the best interest of our children at hand. And they're developing these policies. They're incorporating these language and customs into this process. Next slide.
So just wanted to touch base on that $1.2 million. I know there's a funding, I'm not too sure what that's called again, Alan, but $650,000 is usually the is what is allocated for single nations. But in our case, you know, I push at that table stating that we need to do this. So we're only doing this once, so we need the funds and we need the all hands on deck for this if we're going to do it properly. And we honor the foundation agreement as well. So this is, we're using that to our leverage and making sure that we are funding, we need to be funded to the max capacity to how we see fit, because we don't want to be doing this, you know, another 10 years down the line. You know, if we're going to do it properly, then we need the funds to do it properly. So I just thought I'd just touch base on that 1.2.
Thank you. And we take great pride in mentioning that 64% of that funding is applied towards engagements. The way we set out our engagements, we align it with the Child and Family Advisory Team, and then with our engagement levels. So we meet with the young and or single parents. We meet with the urban members in like Vancouver, Prince George, Kamloops, anywhere where we have a high population ratio of our membership. And then we meet with each of our 5 communities. And then we also have another area towards Prince Rupert, a catchment area where we engage with our members and collect that information as well. And we have structured it so that we have the Child and Family Advisory Team working alongside us in each of these engagements. And we've structured it so that when we're meeting with them initially, we follow up with a re-engagement to give them the feedback that we've collected and gathered from every other community and every other level. Because when we're working and engaging with these members, all the informations that we collect and gather, or any program development or any enhancements or changes, we bring forth to our memberships of all ages. And it's allowed us to capture all of the situations that we consider high priority, knowing full well that we have situations that need to be addressed in childcare and what happens to our children when they age out. In our engagements, we find it's very powerful having our leadership sitting beside our advisory, meeting with our membership. I'm going to throw an example forth. We were in Smithers meeting with our urban members off reserve, and right in the middle of the engagement, it was discovered that we had a young, single, pregnant mother that was homeless. She attended the meeting and she said that she expressed every avenue to try and reach out and get the help that she needed to get a roof over her head. Through our process, we were able to identify that need, and we were able, like at the time, Chief Abraham was in as a council representative, and he took the next step forward, ensuring that we provided the opportunity to step in and meet these immediate measures. And it was quite beautiful to witness, because the lady went into labor the very next day. And so it just brings that passion and that drive, and it actually brings the harsh of the realities, and it brings the matters right straight to your attention. And we get to carry this information to each of the communities. Next slide. We get to meet and we're engaged with the Vancouver, well, all the urban members. When we bring our engagements out to the urban members, the number one thing that they've identified is that they want cultural and traditional activities incorporated, because they're already suffering the impacts of being disassociated from the community. The majority of our members that live in Vancouver and those areas is either because their jobs, education, or because of medical purposes. So they're not away from the motherlands by choice. And so they feel that they're missing out on the enriched values that we have within our tradition and with our culture. So we bring those activities to them in these engagements. And we have a high turnout at our engagements with the urban members. Next slide. So LBN's jurisdiction team has researched other Indigenous nations and provinces, child welfare. We have Alan working very fluently alongside us, ensuring that we reach out through every resource that is available with other nations, and we're creating our own jurisdiction of child and family services. We're able to outline it, incorporating the knowledge that's coming directly from our membership, from our identified needs. And LBN's jurisdiction team has created member engagement questions and surveys to obtain the input for codification of provisions of LBN's law. So for an example, our last engagement here recently with our hereditary chiefs, we brought forth to them terms of reference glossary, and we really want to give credit to this process because we were shared information from SIM. And we were able to envision or put that in our work plan and envision what we want it to look like in our model. And right now, as we're speaking, like I just received 3 texts as we're in this meeting, and the hereditary chiefs are excited that they're able to apply our language that will be implemented and drafted into the laws and the policies and the programs that are being developed for these services. And so in the initial sections of LBN's law under the development include the best interest of the LBN child, priority placement, maternal and father clan. These were highlighted at our gatherings as well. When we're meeting with our hereditary chiefs or any members, they know that it's instilled in us that we do have that knowledge and we do have that practice. Like I said earlier, nobody tells a grandmother what is best for their grandchild. The family knows. And if there's immediate family that aren't there, then we fall into our father clan. Our system is structured so that it is well-rounded and protected, and there is family structure, and that bond is there by culture. And so the factors to consider when LBN child is at risk, MCFD section 13, cultural continuity and decision-making authority, legal traditions for the safety and well-being of the LBN members. This is what we're developing right now alongside our hereditary chiefs, our young single parents, and our leadership. Next slide. And so LBN's jurisdiction team is working with the HCs, the hereditary chiefs, and language experts in the development of the Nayrutan language glossary with words and phrases. And like I said, they're really putting that ownership to it. They're identifying learned experiences of the past, and they're also identifying stories in which we're able to secure and assert this process. We were listening to stories about elders standing up and saying how they were raised by their aunties, uncles, and grandparents, and or how they were they didn't have that option, so that they were raised by their father clan, and some of them, the families were raised by both. So it's really strengthening and asserting our traditional process being incorporated into the child, the best interest of the child. And LBN is also very proud to be hosting an all clans gathering on March 24th, 25th, and 26th. We're holding the all clans gathering to have them come together and help us complete the initial round. This is only the initial round in drafting the glossary and bringing forth the service model, identifying the well-being, safety, health, development, and nationhood. They were identifying many measures such as housing, low income, poverty, drug addictions, mental health and wellness. The list could go on. But each meeting, when I was meeting with the individual clans, we were only structured to have a 3-hour meeting. At each meeting we're holding here, I have to ask them to hold off and continue to the next gathering because they're going at 5 hours. They did just want to keep going and going. Once they start speaking to it, it's just really powerful seeing our leadership at the hereditary chief level helping us develop and draft the service delivery model. And then next slide. So sorry. In closing, when we're drafting the protocols and identifying the priority actions or the measures that are needed in these services and the service delivery, the number one thing that everybody, all of the leadership and the young parents and even the parents are identifying is that this is what they've been missing. It is the missing piece that they've identified that they needed throughout all these years. They don't even know how to comprehend how it feels to actually say we're being recognized. We are being recognized as our own governing body, and they feel like they finally have a voice. They're actually seeing in our engagements that their work or their knowledge and their traditions and their values are not only being implemented in the work plan, and their service delivery, but it's actually also helping us develop the laws. So it's really quite empowering to be working alongside my members with our leadership. And I really look forward to further discussion with you guys on any of this process. We're willing to share with all of you the steps that we've had to take to get where we are right now.
Thanks, Crystal. Okay, so I'm going to try and get through this really quick because I noticed the time. And just one of the important things, as you saw with Grandma's House and the prevention services plan development, being self-determined by LBN, not only is LBN working in the development of its own law and will commence the service model very quickly, but we're seizing on every interim measure initiative that makes sense, that we can go after and bring in and to try and provide immediate benefits in the support of children and families. Indigenous governing body status per Section 12(1) of the Federal Act. That's something that we first advanced to British Columbia in October of 2020, and they recognized LBN a month later as the IGB, meaning per Section 12(1), before a social worker takes a decision, they must contact and involve LBN's community designates. So that was a significant measure that has added increased workload for the community designates, but it's absolutely necessary. And I never understand why, because I've seen the IGB, the numbers since the first one, I think, which was Nisga'a was the first, and Cowichan and Simp. I think that there's only 10 First Nations in BC right now that have that designation, and it always perplexes me because it gets you entry into, binding on all provincial directors that they have to involve you. So next slide. Like I said, I'll try and whip through these. A big initiative that Chief and Council has approved is to commence development and negotiations of a Section 92.1 agreement per the Child Family Community Services Act. Now, this is another really good interim measure initiative on the pathway to jurisdiction. In fact, it's a great foundational piece. I've been involved in developing the first one in British Columbia, which is getting very close to being completed. Similarly, our CFAT and our Chief and Council have decided that they want to do that as well. And which is fantastic. Like I can tell you myself, and I worked for the ministry for 7 years, and as a regional manager for Aboriginal services in the North region, I developed policies, protocols, services, programs. I saw Kim Baird on there earlier. I developed working with the hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en Nation, because I remember she attended and made a comment about being a recovering politician. The jurisdiction and service planning agreement, where MCFD agreed to vacate the field to recognize the Wet'suwet'en's jurisdiction for their children and families. So a lot of different initiatives, but this one I can say without a doubt, the Section 92 one, my own capacity has grown tremendously over the past 2 years. We have actually started and we've developed a framework with a small working group, and Chief and Council just approved the Band Council resolutions and letters yesterday. And so this is going to the province today to officially say, we want to start negotiating our own agreement. So it goes way beyond Indigenous governing body status. It starts right at screening. So once a child protection report happens, then the nation is involved in all elements of the planning and decision making afterwards. Next slide. I gotta flip things here. Clinical supervisor, like one of the things when I worked in the North region, we often to help support the capacity development or just strengthen delegated agencies, but not just delegated agencies, it was also nations that were advancing their own models of child welfare. We often seconded clinical supervisors or what's otherwise known as team leaders. I've written a number of those secondment agreements, and this is a measure as well that Chief and Council said, yeah, let's pursue this. Because it'll help strengthen our child and family service team as well. If you get a talented clinical supervisor in, because we're transitioning off the CFCSA to our own, to LBN's inherent jurisdiction, they can have some utility and support in developing the service model. So these are measures that are meant, and they align with milestones 2 and 4, like finding immediate measures to strengthen, strengthen gaps and shortcomings that are currently experienced as part of the system. So that BCR is also going up today to MCFD. Next slide. Chief mentioned this earlier about how Indigenous Services Canada's funding, came with restrictions about being the prevention service funding being limited to on reserve. We are having discussions as it's been raised very strongly at our tripartite working group table by Chief and others that our needs are not limited to the reserves. And, there's been displacement. There's been, as Crystal said, there's a multitude of reasons why the members are away. However, they want culture, they need support, so this is something that we are very hard petitioning ISC to get that restriction eliminated so that the funding will be able to be utilized in a self-determined manner per the prevention services plan that we create. So next slide. And LBN actually is actually in the process of developing a protocol with VACFAS. As many of you know, VACFAS serves a number of First Nations Indigenous peoples in the Vancouver area. They're providing services to approximately 20 LBN members right now, children, families, both in guardianship and child protection services. There's been a really wonderful relationship. I think Chief might want to comment on that because I know he's been very impressed in our meetings. Chief, did you want to say anything about this?
Yeah, this is definitely a step forward and towards self-determination. Just the communication between BACFAS and LBN at the first couple of meetings have been very successful. I enjoy their energy level, their welcoming, and the work that they've been doing, in terms of the youth council that they have situated as well. And, this is just more great partnerships and opportunities that we're going to be developing over the next few years.
All right, next slide. So these are just next steps, which pretty much sums up our presentation. This year, you saw our engagement schedule. We've got engagement questions specific to the outline, to the law outline that we've created to start developing, to actually start codifying once the input starts coming in, is coming in. And we've started that already. And there's some sections that are already under draft. Things like best interest of the child, priority placement, those things are already well underway. We're in the process. We will be revising LBN's self-determined prevention services plan. We've learned a lot in the past couple of years, and we just have a much better understanding of what the needs are, especially with this coming together of CFAT, Chief and Council, the hereditary chiefs, and through the Vancouver and urban center engagements, we have a much stronger sense of what the needs are. Continue the VACFAS protocol, and we will be commencing the Section 92 on agreement negotiations with MCFD in April is our goal. Of course, we got to submit our ISK DCI funding report at the end of May. We ended up having to really do some tailoring and altering of LBN's internal chart of accounts to accommodate for the jurisdiction funding that comes in and the itemization and detail that ISK wants in their report. So we created new codes, and it was a good exercise for us last year. It's going to make it really efficient for us this year. We have started, and for those of you familiar with the Federal Act and the Stronger Ties provision, which doesn't make sense to nations that have their own legal traditions, especially around maternal laws like your mother clan or your father clan, vis-a-vis what the Federal Act basically says is where a child's habitual residence will carry more strength. We've actually started discussions with the Wet'suwet'en Nation about developing an internation agreement or an internation protocol. I know there's lots of other nations that are developing coordination agreements under the Federal Act. We're actually looking at developing a protocol or a coordination agreement with neighboring nations. We already have lots of intermarriages between the two nations. We have, similar, we have somewhat similar hereditary systems, clan systems, feast hall governance, and the two nations have been working together already with the Anabit program at Wet'suwet'en and with the Child and Family Services program and the cultural program with Lake Babine Nation. So we've started that, and we intend to proceed on that. We will in June, we're going to start codifying the initial 6 sections of the law, and as well as including some of the definitions. We're getting language definitions now, like that are in Nadutan language, that we will then, also retailer. That will also be beneficial for the Section 92.1 agreement. Something that was very positive in my negotiations with MCFD the past 2 years on the Section 92. They are very encouraging and supportive of the use of language, of culture, everywhere throughout the agreement. So, it's a foundational piece that's going to have utility in both those interim measures, but also in the law. We also want to start developing the overall service delivery model, the core service model. One of the things with that is we need a more comprehensive data set from MCFD than what they currently provide per Section 92.1 agreement. We've had that discussion with Denise Devaney, who sits at our table and as Chief said, has been very supportive in a number of ways. They recognize, the province informed us, I think at our last tripartite meeting, that they're looking at making policy changes so they can provide the requisite, the comprehensive, especially the child protection and family development response information that they don't currently provide. They've said that they recognize that Indigenous nations that are creating their own law and service model, they need that foundationally to help structure the service model. A lot of it is on ratios of work. Some of it is on ratios of work, but we definitely need that data to inform what we're doing. And then next fall, summer, we want to have signing ceremonies that conclude our agreements with VACVAS, and we're hoping as well to have a Section 92.1. With the experience we have, we're trying to target a 6 to 8 month window to try and get that done. But it's a fantastic interim measure. MCFD's own lawyer said yesterday in the negotiation I was at that she recognizes it, and she really gave a lot of credit to having that as a pathway and having that as an interim measure on your pathway to jurisdiction. So I'm very bullish on it, but you'll hear about that soon. So I think that's it. So last slide, I guess, and it's got information for Crystal. Or if anybody wants to get any information from Lake Babine Nation, here's Crystal's contact, and she's our key conduit.